I'm Kleanthous, and I'm going to talk to you a bit today about monitoring employees. Whether you're an employer wanting to know whether you can monitor your employees and how, or if you're an employee who wants to know whether your employer can monitor you and in what circumstances. I'm going to give you some pointers on the main issues involved. Monitoring employees has become a hotter and hotter topic in the last few years as technology has grown and given ever more options for doing so. There are broadly two reasons for an employer monitoring its employees now, which you could classify as doing and wrongdoing. In the first case, with remote working in particular, employers are now looking to monitor what their employees are doing at home, that they're actually working, that they're doing the hours they're meant to, that they're being productive. The second, wrongdoing, is more the traditional way of monitoring employees, checking on employees to make sure that they're not doing anything that they shouldn't be doing, whether it's purely passive, for example, storing emails so that they can be checked later if necessary, or actively monitoring what they're doing because there are, for example, regulatory requirements to do so, or perhaps the employer has particular suspicions about that employee because of things that have happened. There are a number of ways in which an employer may go about looking to monitor their employees. The law on this is developing, it's complex, and above all, it comes from several different places, and the key issues arise from the interplay between these various aspects of the law. What are those? Well, principally, they are the contract of employment and the employer's policies on monitoring. They are privacy rights under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights and the Human Rights Act. And they are data protection rights, now principally in the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations. If an employer wants to monitor its employees, it would be very well advised to put that in the contract and to have policies which set out the grounds on which it can do so, when it will do so, how it will do so. Employees then can't say that they weren't warned about it. As for privacy, well, an employee has a general right to privacy under Article 8 of the Convention, but that's not an absolute right. It's a right that can be infringed on where necessary and where reasonable and where it's proportionate to do so. So simply saying, oh, a right to privacy, therefore no surveillance, doesn't work. And the data protection rules, again, do allow, in certain circumstances, for certain reasons, monitoring and surveillance. The key to this is proportionality and reasonableness. The first thing that an employer should do, if it is looking to impose surveillance on an employee, is to do an impact assessment. Why is the surveillance and monitoring being carried out? Is there another way to achieve the same effect without actually surveilling and monitoring the employee? For example, could you monitor their productivity rather than them actually doing it? What's the purpose of it? Is it generally to check that they're doing their job? Or is it because, for example, they've already been detected giving confidential information to a competitor and you want to check that they're not doing it more? Now, clearly, the latter of those would justify more intrusive monitoring than the former of those. And ultimately, is it justified? A question also arises as to whether you have to inform employees. Again, this comes from the interplay between those various factors and why you're doing it. So general surveillance and monitoring of employees to check that they're doing their job and doing their hours, yes, absolutely, employees should be told about that. On the other hand, if you're monitoring an employee's emails to see whether they're sending confidential information to a competitor, it is likely that it will be reasonable and proportionate not to tell them that for very obvious reasons, because they'll find another way of doing it that doesn't involve the surveillance. I hope you found that useful. It's an area we're often asked about here at Gannon's. If you do have any questions or need more advice, please do get in touch with us using the details below.